When Ryan's when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind to Raw with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The A-Team that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rewind to Raw. I'm John Pollock, along with Wai Ting. How are you, Wai?
Are you under the weather or something?
I felt great at about 7:55.
I see.
Oh my God! What happened tonight?
I don't know. After such a great, rejuvenating, start last week, I don't know what this was. It's like a completely different show from what it was last week. All the hope that we had, all our dreams, gone.
Gary Garbett. This week we got Gary Garbett.
What the?
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. There's no explanation, man. Maybe that's our review. That's it.
That's it. I'm done. I don't have anything left in me.
Yeah.
We'll talk to y'all Tuesday night after SmackDown.
But seriously, there was just I don't know how you go from the show last week to what we had this week, which I feel like might have been worse than what Raw was before.
I cannot tell you how badly this show dragged for me. I just thought this was the longest Raw that was just never ending. Like, seriously, at 9:20 p.m., I could not fathom it was only 9:20 p.m. I can't tell you anything on this show that is go out of your way to see. I completely do not need to see Extreme Rules on Sunday after watching this tonight. I need 6 days to recover. I need to go home after the go-home show.
I'm trying to think in what scenario I would recommend somebody to watch this. Maybe if I really didn't like that person.
Honestly, if I was to ask you, what happened on Raw tonight? What happened?
Lacey Evans punched Becky really hard in the jaw. Cedric Alexander pretty well embarrassed himself. Went through all that trouble of dressing up as a man in a janitor's outfit.
Is that not, I think everyone knew where it was kind of going as soon as the guy limped out. Is that not the easiest thing to get the pop at the end and book that thing? And they did the exact opposite of it. It's you actually had Cedric, after he unmasks, we really pulled one on you. No, you idiots, your plan completely backfired. You tried to outsmart the heels and they still beat you.
Listen,
you tried an underhanded tactic that still blew up in your face.
If I was Roman or Cedric, Roman took Cedric's mask off at the end, and if I was Cedric, I'd be like, please don't take my mask off. Please don't take it off. Because it only makes Cedric look like an idiot.
Roman, I'm good. I'm good.
Who lost to the Shane McMahon and Drew McIntyre in 2 minutes after trying to pull off that, I guess you could call it some type of ruse. Man, jokes on
seriously,
on
this actually would have been more protective of Roman and not been as the two looking like idiots if they had used the actual janitor in that role and he got pinned because Shane was a dick and ended up attacking the guy. At least they beat the helpless guy. No, they beat a legitimate professional wrestler without even realizing it and thwarting the babyface's grand scheme. I was baffled by the end of this.
Well, it was not a good night for masked wrestlers in general on Raw, I would say.
Ooh. Yeah, we could debate that one. Who had it worse? All right, we're we're gonna get into Raw, but I need something to build me up to this. How are you doing, Wai? How was your weekend?
My weekend was good. Enjoyed a bit of G1. Watched a little bit of Slammiversary even on a Sunday. So
What did you see?
I saw the main event. I saw the Women's Monsters Ball match. I saw the title match, Cage and Elgin, and I saw Johnny Impact and Rich Swann in the tag match. So most of the show I watched.
Yes, it was Johnny Impact was facing Rich Swann in what might have been Johnny's swan song.
Yes, wow, how about that? I enjoyed the show. It was
a very good show. I enjoyed the pay-per-view a lot. I thought their best pay-per-view since last year's Slammiversary, which, if I'm not mistaken, you attended last year's in Toronto.
In Toronto, yes, I was there. Yeah.
Yes. So it was a really good show. What did you think about the idea of putting Sami Callihan over Tessa Blanchard? Nate and I disagreed on this last night.
I'm willing to see where they go with it. If it's a storyline that continues with Tessa ultimately getting the win, then I would be for it. If it's a storyline that ends right now, then obviously I think that would be questionable because they have somebody in Tessa Blanchard that could lead that company. And the fact that they went ahead and did that main event with, their first intergender main match as a main event. Not only I thought was that a ballsy move that I feel like they should have advertised beforehand. To me, that's a real hook, but they pulled it off magnificently. I thought it ended up being a good match.
Yeah, and I didn't feel they were forcing it in the main event either. Like, they built up the program pretty well on television, and going in, it had, I think, as much buzz as anything on that show. So it didn't feel out of place in the main event. And to that crowd, that was the hottest match of the night. And if Tessa won, that would have been hands down the biggest pop of the night.
Mm-hmm. So we shall see what happens. I mean, I think that they should continue the program.
Let's just start off with the news, and then we'll get into the massive list of shows that we have coming up this week, because Impact, two notable items coming out of last night's show. We had Mike Johnson reporting that it was Johnny Impact's last match with Impact. Apparently, they're still talking, so there's the chance that maybe they will be able to come to some kind of agreement, but last night was kind of his wrapping up with the company. His contract expired several weeks ago, and they agreed to work through the pay-per-view. And then Dave Meltzer adding today that it was LAX's last match with Impact. Of course, their contracts are up, and not necessarily sure when exactly they're up. It was kind of this summer that they were set to be up, but that is what was reported. And they did the
Yeah, I was going to ask, why would they let them go out on an injury ankle rather than, I guess they don't know if they're going to come back or not, but okay.
I don't know why they went to such an extent to do the injury angle, and I think everyone clearly knew it was an injury angle when you had a Dr. Ariel out there to tend to the fall in Santana.
Yes, my favorite on-screen doctor, Dr. Ariel.
Man, he's been taking a lot of abuse on television of late. He took an F5 a few weeks ago.
Amazing.
Amazing.
He's a former colleague of ours, everybody, at the Fight Network.
Yes,
he's not a real doctor, everybody, as far as I know. Last night he was a TV programmer and an executive at Fight Network, but I guess he's got a medical degree somewhere that we didn't know about.
Yes, that's one of the enjoyments of watching Impact. Is it's also like a Where's Waldo of former people that we used to work with that pop up. Whether they are being F5'd or being waterboarded backstage.
So awesome. So awesome for us.
Or getting attacked by Don Callis. That's going to be our
shout out to Sam.
So anyway, talking about Johnny Impact and LAX, I think that LAX, it's to me clear that everyone is going to want them. Johnny Impact, I think that, right now everyone is stocking up on people, and it would not surprise me at all that WWE's ready to bring back Johnny Impact if he's looking for that. Where would you see being a natural fit for both of these performers? And do you see any possibility that Impact could be a player here? Because I think these are two valuable assets, and we're really going to see, can Impact ultimately compete with any of these contracts when they come up, when you're dealing with the major players here that you would assume WWE and AEW are going to be at the top of that list.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like Impact definitely is a player given, I think I do feel like, at least in LAX's case, I think, with Conan being there, I'm sure there's some level of loyalty, and they've been treating them really well on TV through all these events. So I feel like hopefully Impact is able to give them a good offer. The fan in me definitely wants to see them in the mix with what seems to be an incredibly promising tag team division that AEW is building up. I guess the other question is, are any of those rosters maybe too stacked right now, and where would an LAX fit in, even if they did get signed to AEW when they have so many other pet projects that they have to build up? I mean, NXT and WWE obviously are always, places, but if I'm LAX, I don't know if I want to like get into that giant logjam of talent that they have to build up, and it's certainly not a place that tag teams flourish anyway. So to me, like, I'm seriously considering, obviously, AEW, but as well, I'm considering staying at Impact. It might be a good place for them. Johnny Impact as well. Let's remember, like, Taya Valkyrie's still their Knockouts champion. So
yeah, she's still under contract.
So I could at least see him sticking around as long as she's there. But he too, like, I do wonder, back in the WWE system, no doubt I think they would probably just like give him the Drew McIntyre treatment, maybe a few months in NXT, or maybe just directly put him up into the main roster. But even then, like, look at what they did to Rey Mysterio tonight. If you're any type of like tenured, a veteran. But that said, they do treat Drew McIntyre really well. They've been treating Bobby Lashley relatively well too. So where would John Morrison, whatever you want to call him, where would he stand if he were to be brought back? We'll see. But I mean, given his limitations, I think in the promo department, I don't necessarily see a huge role for him in the WWE at the moment. Is AEW interested in an ex-WWE guy, ex-Impact guy? I don't know. I don't know if that would be the right look for them. They're looking at that talent that either, are incredibly hot, such as a Jon Moxley, or talent that's relatively unknown and hasn't really made their name elsewhere before. And I'm not sure if Johnny Impact really fits in. So I would say for both LAX and Johnny Impact, I feel like TNA or Impact is where they might ultimately end up, actually.
Creatively, I can see that argument, but monetarily, I can't imagine that they'd be able to offer what WWE can. And when you hear stories that Rhino is getting offered all this money just so that he doesn't leave, but ultimately chose to, and he is actually going to Impact. I mean, I could just see WWE spending just ridiculous, throwing out lots of money just for the simple reason of AEW not getting these guys and figuring out what they'll do with them afterward. And I see that being ultimately, like, if you're LAX, like, they're going to be looking at offers that are probably going to dwarf whatever their best years have ever been prior, and it would be with Impact. So I think it's just going to be out of Impact's ballpark to be able to throw around the money that if WWE and or AEW wants these performers, they're going to get paid really well. And now is where everyone's just stocking up. So I see that being ultimately destinations for them just because of the money.
Do you think ROH or New Japan are part of the question at all?
Well, I'd be very surprised if they ended up at either place. Johnny Impact's an interesting one. If I was AEW, I don't know how aggressive I would be going after Johnny Impact. WWE, I can really see that. ROH maybe, but I just feel that with ROH right now, I don't know. I don't know if that's where, if you're Johnny Impact, you're 39 years old. You probably have one good, like, money-making run in you in terms of signing a big contract. I don't know if he wants to do that at Ring of Honor. It's going to be interesting if they become a player in this, because ROH, like, they made their big signings at the end of the year, but you haven't seen too many gigantic signings. Like, they've added some names here and there, but it's been kind of low on that front. I mean, they teased the Enzo and Cass stuff. There's been no follow-up with that. In ROH, they brought in, the beautiful people. That's kind of been your additions that you've seen in ROH. So we will keep updated on whatever happens with them. AEW has announced a new match for Fight for the Fallen this coming Saturday. It's going to be Frankie Kazarian and Scorpio Sky taking on Pentagon Jr. and Rey Fenix from Jacksonville, Florida. This was revealed on today's episode of Being the Elite. And we also had, off the top of the show, the Young Bucks making a list of notes. And we got to see Matt's notes that included him crossing out the Good Brothers and also the date October 2nd listed with a question mark, which is a Wednesday night.
Yeah, that's right. Teasing something. So that could potentially be the date of the first airing. It is on a Wednesday.
Are you looking forward to the show on Saturday, or do you feel that this one's coming pretty quick after Fyter Fest?
It's definitely coming quick after Fyter Fest. I think in an ideal world, they would have, put this maybe further into August or something like that. Or early August, perhaps, or at least later in July. But I think we have to remember that Fyter Fest, I don't know if that was always in their schedule or if that was just something that came with the Kenny Omega signing that they had to kind of shoehorn in. So I do feel like there's still such a craving for like anything AEW, anything with the Elite guys right now, that I think there's still a good deal of interest for me, even in a match like this, which is otherwise has no story attached to it, but because I think it'll be a good match between the Lucha Brothers and SCU, I'm definitely interested. This is almost like what it'll be like if they have weekly TV.
Yeah, I think so. And this was all built up in like just a handful of promos from mainly from Frankie Kazarian and Christopher Daniels really doing the promos here to build it up. And it's just simply, hey, you guys are feuding with the Bucks over who's the best tag team. We should be in that mix as well. And we're going to have our match, and Christopher Daniels will be in their corner. I'm curious to see what kind of show we see on Saturday and what kind of constructive criticism they took from Fyter Fest, like the good and the bad, because I think that there was parts of both on that show, and what we see implemented this Saturday, and do we see a different type of show than Fyter Fest was in presentation?
Well, on the same edition of Being the Elite, they basically, there's a really funny bit mocking the librarian stuff where they start off with Leva Bates saying, "Hey, Matt and Nick, I have something to talk to you about this gimmick. Judging by the reactions online, the people love it, and they're doubling down, tripling down. They're gonna go 5 years with the long-term booking for this librarian gimmick. So I like seeing that they're having fun with it. At the same time, obviously, they're very aware of the negative reactions that this gimmick has received. So I imagine if you might see any type of reference to the librarian or any type of jokey stuff on the buy-in, it'll be sort of tongue-in-cheek and almost as a way to say, "We get it, everybody." Maybe to get heat, or maybe it'll be quickly dismissed. But I feel like you'll see a much improved buy-in. I have to think that.
MLW held a show on Saturday night at Cicero Stadium in just outside of Chicago, and this is their best market. They sold out the arena again, and they announced that they will be returning there November the 2nd for a pay-per-view. It's going to be MLW's first pay-per-view called Saturday Super Fight. And it's going to be going head-to-head on pay-per-view that night with UFC 244 from Madison Square Garden. So there will be competition that night.
What time is the show?
This is going to be at 8 o'clock Eastern, and they're advertising a runtime of 2 hours and 50 minutes. So it will bleed into the main card of UFC. Okay. Into the first hour. They also
8 o'clock Eastern time.
8 o'clock Eastern time, yes. It's going to be $19.95. It's on all the major carriers in the U.S. And on Fight TV as well. What do you think about MLW going to pay-per-view? Like, I'm curious what kind of. I'm sure they're just looking at like what's their break even, and can we get enough buys that we can build up and do. You look. Dave Meltzer has had a lot of interesting data over the last month of kind of what traditional pay-per-views have been doing. And an interesting number I found was the Crockett Cup show, which did, by the standards of what these small shows are doing, did, more than you would have assumed. And I have to imagine that's kind of MLW's barometer of doing, 2,600 to 3,000 buys. Like that's kind of what the level of what we're looking at for smaller shows. But what are your thoughts on MLW attempting a pay-per-view?
I think, beyond, I think it's a good price point Even for somebody just at this point, I feel like much of what these promotions, other than the ones that we typically talk about, what they're looking for is people to sample their product so that they might get be interested in checking the weekly show. For instance, like Impact, it's not a show I watch week to week, but whenever they have a pay-per-view, I'm very curious to at least sample it. And I feel like with with MLW doing this, it at the very least encourages people to jump in. This is a jumping on point, even if you haven't watched anything else. We're going to be at our best. You're going to see our very best stuff, our best talent. Everybody's going to try to do their have the best matches that they usually have. So come and sample the show. And I think for that alone, it's worth attempting something like this, just to tell people, hey, this is a jumping on point. Yeah, I think it's a good price point. It's a good area, a demographic. Obviously, seems like every show is going to Chicago this year. So I will be checking it out. I look forward to it.
Yeah, it's a crazy amount of shows that are going to be in and around Chicago when you figure in All Out over Labor Day weekend. Bound for Glory is going to be October 20th in, it looks like it's going to be at the Odeum in Villa Park, Illinois. Then you have this show on November 2nd, and then WWE's doing Survivor Series weekend in Chicago at the Allstate Arena with SmackDown on Friday, NXT TakeOver on Saturday, Survivor Series, and Raw 4 straight nights. So that is a lot of wrestling in a short amount of time in Chicago.
Yeah, I know. I think the Pro Wrestling Tees store is going to be really busy.
Yeah, crazy, very crazy stretch. Now, the final thing was on Saturday night, you and I finished doing our show, the G1 show. And then as you were putting the show together, we put the UFC on. And Wai, you got to see the fastest knockout in UFC history when Jorge Masvidal hit a running knee to Ben Askren and finished him in 5 seconds. And your reaction, I wish this was caught on camera.
I almost didn't see it because I was in the middle of asking you a question as I was uploading. I think I was specifically going to ask you, do you capitalize evil or Kenta or Sonata?
Which ones do you capitalize?
Yeah. And in the middle of me asking you this question, out of the corner of my eye, it was the most craziest knockout I had ever seen in MMA. A UFC record, not an MMA record, but a UFC record.
UFC record, yes.
Yeah. The best though, I think, reaction was the one that Aaron Bronsteter captured.
Oh man,
Israel Adesanya, as he's interviewing with Aaron Bronsteter, is watching this fight, and he gives just an incredible reaction.
It's an awesome reaction because whenever you're doing these in the back, they've always got the monitors on, and if something big happens, someone might. It's
the problem with like doing these interviews because these fighters are only going to be available like throughout the night. So if you're like John's been through this, we've been through this, where you're in the back, you kind of have to do your interviews during the fights. But in this case, it kind of worked out.
So it's awesome to hear Adesanya's like in the moment reaction. But then at the end, they replay it, and he realizes it was a flying knee. And he's like, flying knee? Get the fuck out. I'm out. And he just walks off. It's the best ending. Like, you have to see this reaction video. And Aaron is just, and then Aaron just does like a throw at the end to UFC 243, Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker. It's a great video.
And then he interviews Jorge Masvidal after this, and he shows.
And got his reaction to his reaction.
It was amazing. So great work from Aaron Bronsteter.
Anyway, it was a really good UFC card. In the main event, did you get to see much of the main event?
No, I was still in the midst of like uploading everything, so unfortunately not.
Well, it was a very close fight. I scored it 48-47 for John Jones, but Thiago Santos, I think he got everyone's respect for going 5 rounds, and like you could make the argument he won this fight, and it's the first time that a judge has ever turned in a scorecard going against John Jones. This was the first split decision of his career, and people, Joe Rogan and the commentators, they focused on this a lot of Thiago Santos and his left knee that buckled early on. And today it came out from his manager, Alex Davis, to ESPN that Thiago Santos tore his ACL, MCL, PCL, and the meniscus in his left knee.
Jeez.
Oh, and this guy fought on that for like 4 rounds. I mean, this guy was just like, what a unbelievable feat to be able to go 5 rounds with the best fighter in the world. And, you know, you can make the argument that he won 3 of the 5 rounds. Like, round 2 was super close, and that was kind of the swing round. He won round 1, he won round 5, and then it really was 3 and 4 were for Jones, and the second one was the debatable round, and it ended up being John Jones retaining his title. But I thought Santos really upped his stock.
Is it a rematch you would like to see?
I would like to see it, to be honest, because your options at light heavyweight are Jan Blachowicz, who beat Luke Rockhold earlier in the night, Dominic Reyes, and Corey Anderson. And while Thiago Santos is not a big name, I think that he's as interesting a fighter as you can have for John Jones if it's not Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier will obviously trump everybody, but Thiago Santos is going to be out a long time. But I think when he comes back, he'll probably get 1 fight, and I would say if Jones is still champion, I would give him 1 fight and then go back to the rematch. Although Dana White thinks anyone who thought Thiago Santos won that fight should never score again. It wasn't close, and he doesn't want to see a rematch. So, like, Dana White's lost his mind. He is just totally lost his mind in some respects. Did you see what Jeremy Botter uncovered?
Yes, I did.
Oh my God.
I didn't read it, but I saw the heading. Yeah.
If let's give a shout out to our friend Jeremy Botter. He is doing there's this new Substack where you can subscribe to different, essentially, online newsletters, and he does one. It's wizard.com, and his latest entry was Dana White, who put together a book for all UFC employees called Don't Believe Anything You Read. And it's all about how the media is basically full of shit. That's pretty much this is his manifesto against the media. And it's just, I don't know, dude. This guy is just like, I don't know. His distance from reality just seems to grow by each passing month.
Oh, man. What else is new, though? You know,
like this is one thing. Like, this is one of the most Vince McMahon things I've seen from Dana White. Like, I can't fathom Vince McMahon ever sitting down and doing something like this.
Yeah. I can. I feel like I can. I don't know if he would publish it into like a little pamphlet, but
I mean, both sides for years, they've always had people there designated to monitor what's being written, and like Dana will have reports brought to him, and it's probably the same in WWE. I mean, for years, there were people like listening to our shows, listening to all the stuff on the internet and compiling reports. But this to me is like a step further. It's like, here's a handout for everybody. It's just
there was a time when I'm sure he and Zuffa would have killed for any type of press for the UFC.
I think deep down they still do. I just feel that there is just like a real insulated mentality that Dana White has, that no one will talk about our company negatively. Although I think attention is still what they ultimately covet, but it's their selected coverage that they want to have, which is no different than WWE. That, yeah, I mean, they have
releases, basically.
Exactly. I mean, there is no value to them of, you know, extending the olive branch and having open relationships with wrestling websites, because they don't believe, like, why do we have to cater to those outlets? And that's totally fine. You see the outlets that they do want to work with and who they do provide talent with, and that's it's not all that different from UFC. Anyway, this was a fun chat.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have many fun chats this week, Wai, because I'm looking at this list. You and I are gonna be talking to each other a lot in the next 6 days.
Well, in the next several months, I would.
This has to be a record for the most amount of shows that Post Wrestling has ever put out in a week,
especially on this weekend.
This weekend is nuts.
Yeah. So obviously the usual. We got Rewind to Raw right now. Rewind to Raw. We should change the names of these shows, John.
No way.
Rewind.
Half the people still call it Review a Raw anyway, so they haven't even caught up to the name change. Rewind
a SmackDown on Tuesday evening, and then on Wednesday, our friends from the British Wrestling Experience will be back, possibly talking a little bit about the NXT UK Takeover show that's coming up. Up next is back on Thursday. Friday, we have our latest edition of Rewind Away on our Patreon feed. This is covering Wrestle Kingdom 11. So,
have you started this?
No, of course not.
Oh, I had to start it today because it's a long show, dude.
I'll have to start it maybe tomorrow. But yeah, we're talking about Wrestle Kingdom 11. And for many people, it's sort of like maybe the one that they jumped into New Japan Pro Wrestling with. So looking forward to talking about that. Thursday, I forgot to mention the Cafe Hangout, a huge edition actually this week. Who do we have?
We're going to be joined by MLW's Court Bauer. We'll chat about their decision to go to pay-per-view, the Kings of Coliseum show. They crowned a new champion over the weekend with Jacob Fatu. And we'll chat with Court about kind of all of MLW's business dealings that are going on. And then we're also going to be joined by Rob Naylor and Brendan Doherty. And people might not be familiar with Brendan's name, but he is the genius behind the Wrestling Arcade Twitter account, and they're now putting together a book project. Is that correct, Way?
Yeah, I mean, not just the Twitter account, but the phenomenon that is Wrestling Arcade that, you know, people see every single week on the intro to Being the Elite. We've seen his work through the Joey Janela Spring Break videos. To me, just somebody who's completely hit a home run with anything that he's tried. Always entertaining to follow on Twitter and elsewhere. So we'll be chatting with him about the new Kickstarter, the new GoFundMe that they're setting up for their new book. It is Kickstarter. Never mind. Yeah. So Pro Wrestling's Greatest Moments, a pixelated guide from Wrestling Arcade. So we'll be chatting to him and Rob Naylor about their project this Thursday on the Hangout, free for everybody on Friday. And then the weekend, John. This might be a record-setting weekend for us.
It is. Saturday night. It is so big, we're going head-to-head with Braden Harrington and Davey Portman. Way and I will be doing a live post-show after AEW's Fight for the Fallen. So we're going to have back-to-back live shows on Saturday and Sunday. So if you're a Double Ice Cap or Espresso patron, you can tune in immediately after these shows and watch us do the post-show and call in. Saturday night, Fight for the Fallen, while Braden and Davey will have a show up Saturday night reviewing Evolve 131, the 10th anniversary show that they promoted tonight on Raw. So Braden and Davey will be tackling Evolve.
Yes, so you can find that on their feed on Up Next, of course. As well, we have our first Patreon Cafe exclusive edition of our G1 coverage. I would say that afternoon, you think, John, is when we're
we should have it. I'm going to be watching it pretty early, so we'll have it up pretty early, I think, on Saturday. We'll say afternoonish. So Saturday and Sunday, there are G1 Climax shows. So those separate reviews Way and I are doing will be available on the Post Wrestling Cafe for all members. So you can look for those on Saturday and Sunday.
Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, there will be G1 shows. So,
oh my gosh.
The beginning of B Block, of course, is on Saturday, and then that extends A Block Sunday, and then B Block again on Monday. But on the free feed, we continue to upload WH Park's excellent Cruel Summer series chronicling every G1 Climax final all the way until the end of the present day. So right now on the feed, this past weekend, I joined him to talk about a match from 2001. Dylan Fox joined him to talk about the finals from 2002. And then coming up this weekend, John?
Oh, sorry. You legitimately cut out for a moment there, and then I didn't know if you cut out again, so I just kept
will
quiet.
Tell you who is going to be on.
It's going to be Jojo Remy on Saturday. They're going to be chatting about the 2003 final between Jun Akiyama and Hiroyoshi Tenzan. And then Sunday, he is going to be joined by Joey Bay to chat Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Hiroyoshi Tenzan, which was the final from 2004. And that is our insane weekend of 3, 6, 7 shows this weekend.
Listen, we do it for the truck drivers. Or we do it for anybody who has to basically go through a really monotonous day and they need somebody to keep them company. This is who we do it for. But make sure you subscribe to our Pro Wrestling feed, which you are right now, hopefully. Up next for the Evolve review. And as well, if you like us enough and want to see all our G1 coverage, join the Post Wrestling Cafe, our Patreon, postwrestlingcafe.com.
Yes, check out all of that great stuff. And if you missed it, Nate and I did a review of Slammiversary. That's up on the website now. You can hear 90 minutes of us reviewing that show and chatting about the state of Impact Wrestling, which is always a fun topic to look at their latest state. And we also have a write-up on the passing of Paco Alonso, a huge power player in Lucha Libre who passed away over the weekend. Surprising news to many people. And it's kind of been interesting way, just how behind the scenes this guy really was, in the sense that like there's not a ton out there on Paco Alonso. I chatted with an executive in wrestling today that has done business with CMLL, and just you would think would have known this guy on a personal level, and he's like, I didn't even know this guy. Like, it's just, this guy really kept an extremely low profile in wrestling, aside from those like he worked very, very close with.
Yeah, how interesting. I mean, we talk about, figureheads such as Vince McMahon and Dana White, how I would say maybe public they might be with, for better or worse, I think their opinions of, I guess, media and whatnot. And I'm very curious to learn a bit more about Paco Alonso.
Yeah, I mean, this is, in such a short, in the same week that Perro Aguayo died. I mean, it's very much like at a time when you could make comparisons to like a Vince McMahon, Hulk Hogan dynamic, and they passed away in the same week. So two big passings in the world of Lucha Libre. All right, that's going to take us over to Raw.
It's not. We have to give away a T-shirt, and not only do we have to give away a T-shirt, John. This week, I'm very proud to announce, if you are a member of the Post Wrestling Cafe, you receive 20% off all items in the Post Wrestling store, store.postwrestling.com, for the entirety of our G1 coverage. So from now until August 12th, 11:59 p.m., at which point we'll have New Japan Pro Wrestling will have crowned a G1 Climax 29 winner, and John and I will finally be able to take a breath. From now until then, if you're a Post Wrestling Cafe patron, you receive 20% off all items, including our t-shirts, including our combo packs, including our toques, and including our snapback hats. It's the first time we're putting those on sale, so we haven't had one of these sales in a while. If you are a patron, please enjoy 20% off.
Awesome. Go check that out, store.postwrestling.com. Support the cause. We greatly appreciate it. But now it's time to give away some free stuff. So, Wai, why don't you spin the wheel? And it is time to reach down deep, pick out our selected cafe member, and this week's winner is...
Congratulations to... I see this name. I have no idea how to pronounce it. I've seen this... Llewellyn? Yes, thank you. Llewellyn Jones. Congratulations, Llewellyn Jones from Great Britain.
Don't we know? Don't we have a mutual friend who...
His name is... He goes by Lev.
I know, but that is his actual name, is it not?
So why doesn't he just, go by Llewellyn?
Yeah, I always... whenever I've seen that name, he's the only person I knew with that name, and then I didn't know how he got from that to Lev, but it's a mutual friend that me and Wai had that... Anyway, no one cares, but anyway. Congratulations, Llewellyn. You are the winner.
Congratulations to you. Yes. You win a Post Wrestling combo pack.
Yes. Maybe we'll get a Post Wrestling janitor's outfit for our fall line of clothing.
Or mask.
He was wearing a Dos Caras mask tonight.
Was that really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there you go. Maybe Alberto Del Rio watching on proudly that his family being so well represented on Raw tonight. All right, let's go to Raw from the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. Do you know who was in attendance on his 37th birthday at Raw Monday night?
I do know because I saw him tweet this. Happy birthday to Ariel Helwani, who watched this great show live.
So he emailed me today to tell me he was going to Raw and was like, actually, I had wished him a happy birthday. And then he replied, and he was like, I'm going to Raw tonight. What should I expect? And I was like, they had a really good show last week, and they're experimenting with a lot of new stuff. It should be a pretty fun show, I think. I think you'll actually have a good time. And I didn't even have the heart to reply and apologize. Like an hour into this, I was like, man, what a show you chose. I couldn't imagine being at this show live. I would have been passed out by 10 p.m.
I mean, there's a chance he might have still had a good time. Maybe he just, maybe he liked the lights and the mystery, all that.
We'll get an answer. All right. Raw kicked off immediately with maybe the dumbest stipulation in recent history. I'm not going to say in wrestling history because we've lived through Impact. There have been some stupid stipulation matches, but a mixed tag elimination, it's up there, Wai, among the dumbest.
It's not even something that I realized was going to be so dumb until I saw it in action. A mixed tag elimination match where if one person pinned the other, it would effectively eliminate yourself, because men can only fight men and women can only fight women. So I don't... Obviously, like they continue to try to find ways to fit commercial breaks in, and one of their tactics lately has been to use elimination rules to jam a break in there. Unfortunately, in this case, in a mixed tag setting, it makes absolutely no sense. Yet somehow it slid through, and here we are.
I thought last week when they just had the pull apart, and then we came back from break, and they just rang the bell just for nothing. I was like, okay, we're just getting stupid now. And then I watched this. I was like, this is a lost cause. Like there's no salvaging this. It's just we're out of ideas.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I feel awful for the staff that every week have to come up not just with one idea. It's like multiples on this show because of this insane ruling that they've come up with that they have to work around, and they haven't. I can't imagine this lasting the entire summer. It's just so stupid.
Oh, there are complaints about it every single week, and I can't imagine that they'd be happy with the reaction that this has been receiving. This, like, as bad as maybe, going to break during wrestling matches might have been, it's clearly not worse than what this is.
The crowd started chanting for Becky. She keeps Zelina Vega away from her corner, and then Vega caught her with a DDT, and Becky ended up having a stare down with Andrade when he was tagged in, but that meant Rollins had to enter. So Rollins hits a pair of suicide dives, then Becky tags in, hits the Bexploder, flying forearm, and the disarmer onto Vega for the elimination, which in theory and in actuality eliminated herself. So the match will continue with the men, and then Lacey Evans shows up in the audience, so Becky goes after her. They go to a commercial. We come back, and Andrade has attacked Rollins from behind. Becky is still on the apron in Seth's corner. Michael Cole says it's basically one-on-one because she cannot enter the match. It's like, this is so stupid.
Well, by getting the first fall, Becky earned the right to stand on the apron for the rest of the match.
For what? For what good? Was she allowed to coach from her corner?
Well, Zelina could coach too, so... I don't know. It's just to get a nice view, maybe.
There was a double foot stomp onto Rollins. Rollins came back with a Falcon Arrow. I mean, they had a decent interaction here. It just wasn't very long. Rollins was on the floor, and Becky pushed him out of the way, and Andrade ran at her and drilled Becky. So she goes down, and then Andrade sends Rollins into the barricade while he's concerned with Becky, hits the double knees in the corner. Rollins stops a Hurricane Rana from Zelina Vega, so Becky takes down Vega, and then Rollins stops Andrade with a dive, gets into the ring, hits the stomp, and gets the win. And the crowd did pop for the finish here as Rollins and Becky Lynch win.
I thought in the end, like the spots between the men and the women, and how Andrade is aiming for Rollins but hits Becky instead, which angers Rollins, so that they get a lot more heated. I thought all that was actually done rather well. It was well timed, very snappy, one thing after another, and perhaps a good preview of the type of match that we might see on Sunday. But this is, of course, ignoring just the stupidity of like the whole thing. To begin with, I think if they were going to do this, like a elimination or 2 out of 3 falls thing, you might as well have had like 2 separate matches, had Becky versus Zelina, and then come back from break and have Rollins versus Andrade, and you could have still ended up with like the same spots that you did, except not just, completely make yourselves look really stupid afterwards.
Yeah, I know it's like 2 completely different promotions and size, but we've talked about Becky kind of like losing that edge since WrestleMania, and like I just watch Tessa Blanchard, who just feels so incredibly popular right now, and
she's what that gimmick should be.
Exactly, she is where Becky should be now in terms of what she means to the promotion she's in, and Tessa legitimately feels like the most overstar in Impact right now, and it does not feel forced. It feels as though like she feels this organic popularity.
In an ideal world, I think if the WWE were more willing to like do intergender matches, like Becky would be receiving the type of push that I think Tessa Blanchard is right now, going up against the man versus the men, but they kind of teased it with Nia, but they haven't gone on with it. I don't anticipate them doing it with Becky, but I think if it was a different time, I think it would be a great story.
I think they have to do some kind of intergender spot in the match on Sunday, whether it's Baron taking a Bexploder or something. I think they do have to do some spot with Becky and Baron.
Yeah, I think they will. Yeah,
and I think that'll be their way of kind of testing the waters with it as well. Which I think, as you saw on Sunday, I think if it's done properly, it can really get over.
I just don't see WWE like allowing Becky Lynch to have that type of match. Like, I think Impact can
no, they're not going to do like the violent, like, stuff with bats and stuff. They're not doing that. But I think there's a way to do it.
You could do spots,
right?
And that might be enough. But I think Impact is sort of like at an advantage where like they're small enough that they can get away with like, I would say, things like that without angering, I think, too many people. In fact, it's something that makes them stand out. Whereas I feel like WWE, with like all their advertisers and the broadcasters that they have to kind of like answer to, there's no way I feel like now that they would allow them to like have a match at that level of intensity, at least. But
yeah,
but regardless of like maybe the type of match, I feel like Becky Lynch needs to grow as a character, and take center stage in a way that we haven't seen her do at all since WrestleMania. She's just kind of been there. In fact, I feel like she's kind of regressed.
Corbin then attacked Seth Rollins on the ramp, and Becky goes after him, and Evans returns and hits her with a woman's right, so Becky goes down, and then through all the carnage, Paul Heyman walks out and gets a pretty good reaction from those in Newark.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Little does this crowd know what they're in store for. Corbin and Evans were backstage after the break, and Corbin is just reciting a bunch of lines.
Hold on a second. Did you talk about the punch? So Lacey Evans decks Becky, of course, with the woman's right on the stage. But this replay that they showed afterwards was just like, we had Jorge Masvidal right here in Newark. Did you see this punch?
I didn't see the replay.
Man, like it looked like right on Becky's jaw. Like the slow-mo looked, just clocked her.
It, I guess, punctuates the smoothness of this feud. Corbin and Evans are backstage. Corbin said that love does make you blind. And then they laugh about Seth and Becky each costing the other their title, which is what's going to happen on Sunday. They said that their relationship is strictly professional. So
yeah,
they're really teasing some sexual tension here between these two.
Well, I mean, they're teasing it by having them explicitly state that they are strictly platonic and strictly professional. And in fact, you even had Baron Corbin here at the end, like, complain about love. He's like talking about how he says like love stinks. So, I mean, are we going to see like an emo, heartbroken Baron Corbin? Like, clearly these are the words of a man who has suffered a great deal of heartbreak in his life. So is that the reason why Corbin, I don't know, it comes across as miserable as he has? Maybe he was just a real young romantic, a man in the past.
Oh, could you imagine if they do like some flashback scenes to Baron, like as a teenager who was just
like a pimply kid, like skinny
and just deeply in love, and then his first girlfriend like dumped him for someone that looked like Seth Rollins or something.
Oh, or maybe he had a crush on Becky Lynch, and this was like him getting back. Anyway, what we're lining out here would actually be really good, I think, compared to like it would be at least some type of backstory, right? The potential for like Corbin and Evans to end up in some type of like strange romance, I'm not entirely against it. I think it's kind of interesting.
Heyman is in the ring. He knows a little bit about the word extreme, and Extreme Rules is taking place from Philadelphia on Sunday. And he said that this Sunday, Brock Lesnar will cash in the Money in the Bank contract against either Kofi Kingston or Seth Rollins. And everybody at home groaned. And he said that's a spoiler. And he said he has not violated a spoiler since before WrestleMania 30, which is when he promised Brock would beat The Undertaker and end the streak. And he said, either I have built up enough credibility by telling the truth that it's now time to lie, and I'm giving you the heads up about a significant event. So I kind of like the way he positioned this. He's like, I'm either going to break my 5 years of spoilers coming true, or so it's going to be a cash-in. It's like one or the other is going to happen on Sunday.
Yeah, one I think would be interesting. The other I don't give a shit about. Who cares if he lies? Like, who cares if it's the first time in 5 years that he lies? It's not enough of a hook. I don't know what the thinking is for this whole thing. Is the idea to like get people so bored of like Heyman continuing to promise that Brock is going to cash in, only to be disappointed, so that people just don't expect it, so that maybe by the time Sunday it actually happens, we become expected? Or it like, is that the point, John?
I think it's just simply to give people that have been burned by this promise so many times yet another reason to believe that the cash-in is happening. And I think, listen, I like this setup here. I like this explanation by Heyman, but I think that they're very much overextending the fans' care about seeing a cash-in. I don't think there's all that, yeah, you'll get the pop. You'll always get a pop for a cash-in. But I think they're really thinking the fans have a great care about Lesnar cashing in that I don't think is really there.
Yeah, no, they've kind of like killed the gimmick by this point. It might be surprising if it does happen, especially if it happens against Kofi. By the way, like, he didn't mention Corbin or Joe in like this prediction, so I don't know. I don't know if that telegraphs anything, or
well, maybe they're both losing their titles on Sunday.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, Heyman didn't even mention Corbin or Joe as he said this. Anyway, doesn't matter. But
that's his out.
I don't know if anybody cares at this point. Like, even if you do get a cash in, it's certainly not enough of a hook, I would say, for anybody to tune in on Sunday.
Drew McIntyre, first they recapped the Bobby Lashley, Braun Strowman segment from last week and announced that there will be a last man standing match on Sunday. So that was a quick recovery.
I guess, yeah, no real update from Braun. I guess we'll have to wait. Or maybe we might get it tomorrow. Or we'll just wait until Sunday before he appears.
Yeah, I think they're coming back way too soon after that angle. And I was very disappointed tonight with the follow-up on that angle. Like, it was almost non-existent on this show.
Yeah. I felt
like that was in every segment last week. It was the most pressing matter on either show last week. And tonight it felt like they did a replay of it, and that was it. And Lashley was unscathed, and Braun's going to wrestle on Sunday. And I just feel when you do the big angle, you got to get every ounce out of it. And I feel like you almost wasted a big angle, because what was the point at the end of it for a 1 week build to a pay-per-view match?
Yeah, I feel like in times like with angles like this, it's nice to at least see the participant come back in the go-home show, just like maybe for one more match before going into Sunday. I don't know if it was just maybe just poorly timed, or would you? You know
what was never said on tonight's show? Ruptured spleen. There was no explanation of that. The man's just had a miracle recovery that he can be cleared for this match on Sunday.
Or he'll wrestle with the ruptured spleen.
Oh, okay.
I guess.
Great. That maybe that should have been the stipulation.
Maybe. But I think it at least requires the visual of seeing Braun and Bobby Lashley square off in person one more time before I think the idea of them in a match on Sunday really sets in. And I feel like this show was kind of missing that.
Drew McIntyre and Shane McMahon were backstage, and they were with a garbage man named Tony. And tonight they get to pick Roman Reigns' mystery partner, and they asked Tony if he'd like to be his partner tonight.
Or they consider. Yeah, he's under consideration.
Great. The Revival and Elias versus the Usos and The Miz in your favorite, a 2 out of 3 falls match.
Do they announce these stipulations beforehand?
They just announced it when the match began.
Like Cole announces it, you mean?
Yeah, Cole just said it on the commentary. I didn't know this was a 2 out of 3 falls match till the match began, and they said it for the first time.
I often don't realize until like we actually get the pinfall, and they continue.
Cole did mention it at the beginning.
No, I just don't notice.
It's not like they built this up. Miz and Elias fought on the floor. They went around the ring, and then Miz chases Elias up the stage, and Jay's just watching them and turns around into the Shatter Machine, and Wilder pinned him in 3 minutes. We come back after the break. The second fall begins. Elias is taken off, and they have the advantage on Jimmy, who gets cut off in the ring. There's a back body drop.
If you didn't watch this, everybody, let's just kind of recap what happened, okay?
Yeah.
For some reason, Elias decides to leave the match. I guess because the sight of the Miz was that intimidating that he just can't come back. This somehow allows one of the Usos to just lose to a Shatter Machine. That's fine. So Elias doesn't come back when the match restarts. And so instead what we get now is a handicap match between 3 baby faces and 2 heels. So that's what we're dealing with, everybody.
Dude, this show made no sense. Like there's weeks when I'm down on Raw because it's boring. This one on top of it, like there was so much nonsense on this show that was just
bad booking.
Yes. There was lots of that on this show, and this was one of the many examples. So the second fall takes place. Jay gets tagged in. He hits a high cross. Dawson's in, brainbuster. Miz hit a skull-crushing finale on Dawson, evened it up. And then the third and decisive fall featured some super kicks, a dive onto Wilder, and Jay hit a splash. Final fall, dude, went 20 seconds.
Well, I mean, a third fall that also began with, 5 seconds in between. So the heels get that first pinfall in this.
You always want to lose the first fall because then you get the commercial break to rest. You don't lose the second fall because there's no rest period.
So the baby faces get 3 minutes with which to recover before the second fall. The heels, however, who are already at a disadvantage in a 3-on-2 handicap match, lose that second fall and then immediately have to get into the third fall where the Usos just continue beating the shit out of them in order to get that third fall. It made the baby faces look terrible. They gave no time for the Revival to recover. Elias didn't even have a good reason to leave. So I don't know if anybody would have benefited from this segment.
Yeah. So apparently the Revival and the Usos are having a tag title match on Sunday. Is that, am I correct here in stating that? I thought they mentioned that during this match.
I'm not sure. I will consult Wikipedia after this.
I'm looking here; it's not listed, but I could have sworn they said this on the Usos when they cut their promo. I thought they mentioned this.
You could be right.
I could be right. I don't care if I'm right.
You could be wrong too.
Yeah, it's fine. Then they showed highlights of Drake Maverick on his honeymoon, and some of these videos were very funny. Where Renee is all excited about where they're going, and he says, "We're going to Orlando." To which Renee says, "We live in Florida." And then they're at Universal Studios, which I found funny for Rockstar Spud and his memories.
Oh, yes.
And then Renee complains about they haven't even taken a picture together, and we get a still shot of Drake holding up the title, blocking Renee's face.
Yeah, these have been popping up on social media all week, and they've been hilarious. Again, it's not just Drake Maverick, who I think is doing a very good job, but his wife appears to be a great performer, especially in this role.
Then Drake is hiding backstage in a crate, and Renee is complaining. Drake offers for the two of them to hop into the crate and have sex here on Raw, and he is going to show Renee that he's a great husband and give her the honeymoon she wants. And she says that when that happens, she will consummate the marriage with him. And he yells that he's going to get it on with his wife, and he yells so loud that all the geeks hear him and chase him through the hallways.
I certainly am noticing on this particular episode of Raw, maybe it started with last week, but just much more of an attempt to cater to, I would say, the hormonal teenage boy demographic. At least with that type of humor. We have a man, getting really excited to have sex with his wife. We have another with a wife
impregnated Maria.
And a wife claiming that her husband will never have sex with her, and that in fact her baby might be from somebody else. So I don't know. I was very high up on this show last week, and this week I'm almost making a total 180.
Shane and Drew were next with a concession worker. Another one of the candidates. Rey Mysterio came out for his open challenge. He stood in the ring 6 weeks ago with his arm in a sling, and relinquishing the United States title was one of the hardest things he ever had to do. I would say being the hottest free agent and having offers from New Japan and AEW and coming back here would probably have been an even harder thing for him to do. He said he rehabbed harder and became hungrier, and he beat the doctor's predictions, and he has returned. So he has laid out the open challenge, and who is coming out? Bobby Lashley, who has recovered 100% from last week's near-death experience, and we get an impromptu match between the two. Rey drop-kicked Lashley and hit a 619, then leaped off the top, and Lashley caught him and hit this big flatliner, a spear. And Bobby Lashley pinned Rey Mysterio, dude, in 57 seconds.
And
then beat the shit out of him after the match. I mean, this had to be Rey Mysterio. This could only be a role that Rey Mysterio has the unique qualifications to cover. What was this?
Add this to the list of things coming out of this episode that just were I couldn't make sense of. Of all the people that I think you could have had for this throwaway role to heat Bobby Lashley up for Sunday, somehow you decided to waste Rey Mysterio's comeback. I mean, they haven't exactly been booking Rey the strongest since he's been back anyway, but this was definitely like a new level. This was like... I don't even think Kurt Angle would have had treatment like this. It made no sense why it had to be Rey Mysterio here.
Yeah, this Rey Mysterio has been one that, I mean, if I'm a guy that I'm looking at two identical offers of places to go, I'm looking at this and being like, this is way more of the risk than the alternative.
Do we know how long he might have?
His deal was an 18-month deal. So
right.
It's not like he signed some super long-term deal. And yeah, like I think that he will still have enough in him that when this deal's up, that he'll be signing another deal somewhere.
Right.
The problem will be, the money offered is going to be gigantic here. But like, it's just baffling to me, the amount of money they spend, and this is what you do. Like, this was a role that could have been fulfilled by any one of the 24/7 geeks. It could have been like any throwaway babyface that you're not doing anything with.
Yeah.
So a very, very baffling segment. So he beat up Rey on the stage. He teased pressing him through the LED board, but then just dropped him onto the referees and cut a promo on Braun Strowman, saying he was the only man standing last week, and this Sunday he'll be the last man standing. So, they're obviously going very hard here with Bobby Lashley and trying to really position him much higher. But it was, I don't know, I just didn't think it really worked for coming off such a heavy angle that they did last week. That this guy is unscathed, that Braun, there was nothing on him, and we're going to the match so quickly after such a hot angle last week. But, I mean, they at least did position Bobby Lashley very strong here.
Yeah. Ultimately it was a bit of a generic segment, wasn't it? Like, it was Bobby Lashley beating up some jobber, except in this case, that jobber was the greatest cruiserweight of all time in Rey Mysterio. So... I think the spot was really great. If you asked me last week if I was excited for the match on Sunday, I would tell you definitely. This week, I guess I'm not really so sure, because this segment came across as such a generic segment, and baffling when you consider that it was Rey Mysterio. I'm kind of looking at this match on Sunday like it's just another match.
I just think like there was something that you could have done to, like, this is the first time Braun Strowman really has to sell the damage that someone did to him. and he's actually got to go through a recovery and gain revenge on this guy. And you've bypassed all of that. Like, there was nothing. He was off TV for a week, and he's going to wrestle on Sunday, unless they have some other angle in store to get out of the match on Sunday. But
are you suggesting like a video of Braun Strowman going to rehab? Maybe U2 in the background. Big
I think
comeback at Royal
I think at the very least, showing this guy like all like hospitalized and selling the effects of this, of what Bobby Lashley has done to him. And I just think, like, why do the angle if you're not going to do any of the elements that make it a successful angle that's going to, in theory, an angle that's going to elevate both parties and build to a match that people are going to want to see?
The angle was done so well last week that I thought it was big enough for the match to take place at SummerSlam. You know, you do a big buildup of like Braun making his comeback and then ultimately getting revenge on this guy who took him out for such a long time, because that stunt was big enough. But instead, doing the match on Sunday when presumably Braun, injured spleen and all, will probably be relatively okay, I feel like just ultimately will make us forget about that thing from last week.
Yeah, I go back to this point I brought up before about, like, it's very clear to see AEW's direction when it comes to, like, this. It's fine to do an angle, but the angle only means something if you understand, like, what kind of effect this had on the person that hopefully the audience cares about. And you go to that Brandy Rhodes promo last week, that was one of the best promos this year. And again, it had nothing to do with Allie and some, like, coming up with some reason for these two to fight over. It was like some backstage skit that leads to a match. It's all about Brandy and her own insecurities, that you care about this person by the end of this promo. And that's what so much of AEW's promos are focused on. It's about the performers themselves and why these matches mean something and what the larger representation of them is. And you get none of that in all of these stories that are going on. You do the big angle, but there's no reason to be rooting for the babyface to come back here because you didn't do the promo. You didn't do any of the, like, what effects has Braun had as a result of this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And the thing is, like, WWE is really no stranger to that type of production. They do that stuff themselves, but you have to look at things like Chronicle 24,
and, yes,
365 to get stories like that, and they're not being produced by the same people that produce this television show, unfortunately. But if they wanted to pivot, like tomorrow, they have the people, they have the style guide even to do those types of pieces if they wanted to.
And who's the guy we talked about? Would be a fascinating chronicle to watch how much different he is. And they're doing it on Saturday. Ricochet.
Yeah. I guarantee you'll learn more about that guy like in that hour of programming or half hour of programming than you probably have all year.
I have no doubt. Styles was backstage with Gallows and Anderson, was interviewed by Charlie. AJ says he doesn't owe anyone an explanation for his actions. He should have just said, we're thin on the heel side. I need a bit of a refresh. And now I'm a heel. I'm 100% heel tonight. And told Charlie to get out of my face. And Anderson and Gallows just ignored her. You know what AJ could have said? You know what, Charlie? Last week I was explaining my injury and how I rehabbed, and you blew me off and didn't care. So now that you have a question, I'm going to say fuck off. That's what AJ could have said. Remember that promo?
Yes. I feel like there was maybe some subtle communication here of that. Perhaps.
Maybe. No Way Jose versus Cesaro. This featured Cesaro chasing away the conga line, and then if you want to go back, this is one thing you can go back to on Raw and relive. Go watch No Way Jose exit the ring to go after Cesaro. This is the least graceful exit I've seen from a professional wrestler leaving a ring under his own willpower that you're ever going to see. Like, you would have thought this guy was grappling Zack Sabre Jr. in the form of these ropes that he was trying to get through. He got to the floor, fought with Cesaro. They got into the ring. He was hit with an uppercut, gut wrench, Cesaro swing, sharpshooter, and Cesaro won in 1:10. And then Cesaro tripped over Jose as he was releasing the sharpshooter. This was just the two most uncoordinated people. Like, they just had negative chemistry here. Like, their bodies were just not in sync with the other.
It was a rematch from last week, of course, where Cesaro again beat Jose really quickly. So it seems as though they are going to tell some type of underdog story of Jose continuing to get his ass beat by Cesaro until one day he might get the win. The problem is I don't know how many people care to see Jose get that win over Cesaro. It's been 2 weeks of this, and I just don't know if anybody is latching on to Jose as a babyface at all.
Did you latching on to Jose as a babyface? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay. The Street Profits were back. Now it all makes sense. They are here to promote the pay-per-views.
I guess, yeah. The role.
They're very good at it. I don't know if this is necessarily requiring
they're
tag champions.
They're Doc Hendricks is their role, basically. Like last week,
they're hosting the Slam Jam.
Yeah, like last week, I guess like we wondered if they were going to be a part of the tag team division, and I guess they still might be. But this week on the Go Home Show to Extreme Rules, I guess they had no feuds for him, no matches. Instead, they were just here to play big WWE fans who can't wait to watch Extreme Rules on Sunday.
They're very excited about The Undertaker digging holes and taking souls, holes and souls, and they emphasize that Roman Reigns is going to have a mystery partner tonight, and it can be anyone. So that prompts Angelo Dawkins to ask, what about Kawhi Leonard?
Which got some boos in Newark and perhaps some boos in Toronto as well.
Yes.
A real sore spot.
Kawhi Leonard, why?
Yeah. Wanted to go home. It's fine.
And then in a funny little inside comment, Montez Ford told director Kerwin Silfies to transition to another shot.
All right. Great.
And that was that. They'd be back for more. I mean, these guys have great delivery. They sound different than most promos on Raw, but I
wouldn't make them super fans.
Yeah, it's that's what they feel like. Remember when they had Wayne and Adam, the super fans that they did those ads for? That's kind of what these guys are positioned as, super fans that are your NXT tag champions. And
I think the better role for this would be Aleister Black. I'd love to see him
oh my god,
promote Extreme Rules.
And thus style. I ask you, if he is digging his holes, how will he fit the souls?
Oh my goodness.
Oh gosh. Mike and Maria were back on Raw. Mike has bought flowers for Maria, and he's sorry about last week. The news of Maria's pregnancy caught him off guard, and he's so excited that Maria is having the couple's second child. They say how much they love each other, but she says she also loves ice cream and pickles. And Mike realizes that she is telling him to go get her some ice cream and pickles. And then he asks, would you like non-fat? And she is insulted by this because Mike is insinuating she's fat. And then as Mike leaves, Maria says under her breath, what type of man taps out to a woman?
Yeah.
Not Sami Callihan. Maybe that's the father.
Maybe, man. This more to come on this. Well, I'll save my thoughts for the second segment.
Okay. Bayley and Nikki Cross did an interview segment, and the two are going to have a beat the clock challenge tonight, and the winner who wins their match in the shortest amount of time gets to pick the stipulation for Bayley versus Alexa Bliss on Sunday. That sounds absolutely confusing. To their defense, Alexa Bliss was legitimately sick over the past week, and she just wasn't cleared tonight, and thus Nikki Cross had to get placed into this role tonight.
Okay.
So that's what was going on, but it seems like they're confident Alexa will be fine for Sunday. So
I don't have any issue with that, but why did they have Bayley beat Nikki last week on SmackDown?
There's no explanation for Nikki Cross losing last week, and watching the follow-up tonight, where it wasn't even mentioned, it made no sense that they beat Nikki Cross, which to me was the most compelling part of this story, was that here is Nikki Cross, the real deserving one, and they beat her, and she is now undeserving in my mind.
Mm-hmm. She was the credibility in the team that by the end of the evening we learned that they will formed to take on Bayley. But instead, she's just like another loser.
Cross says she's got the whole world on her shoulders. She's got to win tonight, and she doesn't know where she would be without Alexa. Bayley says Nikki is being used, and Cross is sick of Bayley running down Alexa. She's just jealous. And they announce Bayley will face Sarah Logan. Nikki Cross will face Dana Brooke. And Cross says Dana is bigger and stronger, but she's not tougher than me. And I know I've got my work cut out for me, but I will do anything for Alexa Bliss. Again, I think Nikki is just a great personality.
She's done really good. I think she's had to show off some acting chops in this program. And while I don't love the story, I certainly feel like they kind of screwed up with it from Tuesday onwards. I still think Nikki has been doing a good job.
I think she's done a really good job. Like, she is a babyface you really do get behind. And I think that, yeah, they really screwed that up last week. But I think she's doing a very good job. R-Truth and Carmella are looking for Drake Maverick. They're searching in drawers. He needs his baby back, so he starts reading the lyrics to With My Baby Tonight. Drake runs past them, followed by the Geeks, and then Truth and Carmella, for whatever reason, run in the opposite direction. More to come. The Viking Raiders took on Colin Justin and Devin Justin. Maybe there's a new rule that all jobbers, their first and last names have to end in IN.
Oh, okay.
Colin Justin and Devin Justin.
Yep.
It's like the most fake sounding names ever. Viking experience in a minute 23. They won.
No reaction for this. It's been, several weeks now that we've seen the Viking Raiders have these types of squash matches. I still know nothing about them. They've really made no effort to explain what the characters are, why they're Vikings. I barely even realize that they're heels. I think even the attempt to make them mean and heelish has been really kind of minimal. So I would feel like this would be a team that seems awfully generic as heels, and I think they're often definitely better as baby faces. Yet, for whatever reason, it seems like this is the version that we're going to be getting for now.
I never remember that these two are heels. It's at the end of the segment when it clicks.
They seem like such natural baby faces, and that's not only because we've seen them as such in NXT, but I just feel like the gimmick works way better. Their in-ring style works way better as baby faces. I know Vince probably sees them and says, "Oh, it's two big mean guys. Of course they're going to be heels." But because they wrestle in such a dynamic way, and because they actually just kind of look like friendly giants, I would say, I feel like they work way better as baby faces.
You've been given no reason to dislike these guys. They kick ass. They win their matches. Why would you not like them? They've given you no reason to dislike them. They've never said a word. They've not upset anybody. Mm-hmm. They don't fuck with anyone.
Yeah. Why
would you boo them?
They've been given very little personality. Even actions that would only by association do we realize that they are supposed to be heels. But no story to speak of right now. It just might be another one of those things where we have to wait for this pay-per-view before we get something. But I feel like I've been saying that for so many people. Oh, after this pay-per-view, they'll get a storyline. And then, here we are.
After the match, the Geek showed up. R-Truth was in the ring. He backed away from the Vikings and left with Carmella through the audience.
Yeah, there was a brief stare down between Truth and the Viking Raiders. Is that anything?
Probably not.
Yeah, maybe not.
Roman Reigns was backstage. Charlie asks him about Shane's mind games. Reigns says he has nothing to say, only that the people playing the mind games are on his team. It's a battle of mind games, Way.
What does that mean?
It used to mean...
No. The only people playing mind games are on my team.
Well, he was trying to explain that we are 2 steps ahead of Shane and Drew McIntyre, who think they're getting one up on me. So he had this plan with Cedric Alexander, and boy, are we going to show them.
Oh, so he was foreshadowing what... But how would he have known that they were going to choose that janitor?
This part was not explained well because it didn't make sense, because they explained that Shane and Drew got to pick the partner. So Roman, his plan only works if it's
If it's a black man.
If it's the black janitor.
Yeah, or any black man, I suppose, who's that height.
Unless he recruited multiple members of the 205 Live roster to fit whatever ethnicity was selected by the candidates. Like he may have had
That's got to be it. Yeah.
Someone who looked like the concession worker, someone who looked like the garbage man. He had all these cruiserweights on standby, and he was just going to DM them whenever it was time for the match and then give them the Dos Caras mask.
So Roman Reigns' team is the entire 205 Live roster.
Yes, these are the mind games. That should be the name of the show on Tuesday nights. 205 Mind Games.
That would set my expectations way too high.
Yeah, and it's not, you don't win by pinfall. You win by outsmarting them.
Yeah.
Ricochet cut a promo. Enough said. He looked up to AJ for a long time. He knows that Anderson and AJ will get involved tonight, and he knows he's going to have to end up fighting all three. Then the club came out. Styles tells him to slow down, appreciate the moment, because Gallows will stomp a mud hole in you. And they replayed the attack from last week, and Corey ended it. More mind games from AJ Styles. Mm-hmm. Corey is the worst offender of this term. Well, maybe Vince McMahon is the purveyor of, God damn it, there's a fucking game going on between my ears. It's like it's mind games. Fuck. Where's my Tylenol? That's what I was asking by this point in the show. Ricochet and Luke Gallows. We got your favorite. We got the rear chin lock, which is what you always look forward to in a Ricochet match. Gallows caught him with a clothesline. Styles just played cheerleader, and then Ricochet caught him with a sunset roll-up in 3 minutes. Styles then challenged him to take on Carl Anderson. So you know what? Ricochet said, give me 3 minutes to catch my breath, and then I want this match to restart, and we'll have a match with Carl Anderson. So they said, sure. We went to a commercial break, and they had a staring contest, came back, and we rang the bell to start match number 2. Styles distracted him. Anderson had the advantage for a while. Styles was grabbing his foot. Then Ricochet ducked the clothesline, hit a Fosbury flop onto Gallows, and then kicked off the post and backflipped onto Styles on the floor. Anderson then ran into the post, and Carl got knocked down, hit with the 630, and Ricochet won in 4.5 minutes. So AJ jumped him, hit a Bloody Sunday, got the Gallows and Anderson to hit a Magic Killer, and then he teased a Styles clash off the turnbuckle, but Ricochet wasn't even worth his time and just dropped him onto the mat.
Yeah. You had basically a set of like 2 really generic WWE matches, which for Ricochet matches, I feel is basically like saying, they're really bad.
Gallows and Anderson should be calling their finish now the high 6 figures. That should be the name of their finish now.
Well, good for them if they can call it.
Great for them.
Yeah. But crowd was pretty dead for both of these matches. And I feel like it just might simply be the opponents, because I feel like this audience reacted pretty well to Ricochet versus AJ Styles. Also, they were not matches that were all that exciting, unfortunately. So I like AJ as a heel a lot. I like the club back together, but man, these were some cold matches.
Yeah. They teased leaving, then they returned, and they held Ricochet for a phenomenal forearm, and then they did the 2 sweet sign. And then, as much as they're involved with this whole company now and the promotion, it was something to hear Michael Cole plugging the premier independent promotion known as Evolve.
Yeah.
Which I wonder if that's how that's going to be the new name whenever they promote it, is the premier independent promotion known as Evolve. That sounds like something so wordy that is what they will always have to refer to this company as.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What the hell is Evolve? Do I look like someone that's evolved? And then they went into this quick package with comments from Johnny Gargano, Drew McIntyre, and maybe my highlight of Raw this year, hearing Lenny Leonard's voice on Raw. The unsung hero of Evolve and independent wrestling, Lenny Leonard.
It's great for Evolve. I mean, we know that this relationship has existed for years now, but this is, I believe, their first acknowledgement of the relationship of Evolve on Raw. It was a very simple video. Didn't necessarily tell you who was going to be wrestling on this card.
Yeah, why was that?
Because they probably don't consider anybody stars.
It's their guys that are headline. It's Adam Cole and Akira Tozawa and Drew Gulak versus Matt Riddle in the top 2 matches. I thought at least they would have promoted those 2.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's something. Maybe they don't consider that to be a hot enough match. Who knows? But basically, what you did see was images of some of like the alumni. Keith Lee, Matt Riddle, Bryan Danielson, Drew McIntyre, Drew Gulak. And then you show that with, they mix that with clips of the Street Profits, Velveteen Dream, Austin Theory, DJZ, Walter Adam Cole, and I believe those guys, they seem to be promising will be on this show. Is Walter going to be on this show?
No, Walter's not on this show.
Well, why did they show him then?
He's wrestled for Evolve in the past.
Okay. But they showed him in the portion where they're like, so there was one portion that was the past, and then one person is supposed to be the present, and that led me to believe that some of these guys, anyway, whatever. But
let's actually look at this card right now. I think this is going to be an awesome show on Saturday. I think they're going to have a really great show.
It's the premier independent wrestling organization.
No one has evolved. Adam Cole, Akira Tozawa, Austin Theory, who to me is a lock that he will be in WWE in the near future, versus JD Drake, and they're doing a winner take all for the Evolve and WWN championships. Eddie Kingston and Joe Gacy versus AR Fox and Leon Ruff. Matt Riddle versus Drew Gulak. Anthony Henry versus Arturo Huas. Colby Carino, the son of Steve Carino, versus Babatunde. And Kurt Stallion versus Sean Maluda versus Stephen Wolf versus Harlem Bravado. And Josh Briggs versus Anthony Green. So a mix of, NXT guys that are in this, but there's quite a few Evolve guys on the show as well. You know what would have been the best? We go to the back, and my guest at this time to tell us about this premier independent organization known as Evolve. Can you please tell us what's coming up? Charlie Caruso. This coming weekend, Evolve 10th anniversary, night 1, Philadelphia. Could you have imagined that promo on Raw?
I would die.
This would have been a thumbs up Raw if that happened. God.
Absolutely.
I'm very happy for Gabe Sapolsky. If you ever watched that episode of The Wrestlers, and it's like, man, this guy I know he has his detractors in wrestling, but man, Gabe Sapolsky, think of the hardships this guy has gone on at the independent level for the last 20 plus years that he's been working in professional wrestling, that, he's now got a steady job. He's working as a consultant with the biggest company in the world, and, Evolve is getting national attention now. I mean, it's hard not to feel good for him catching a break.
I suppose so. Yeah. I feel like he's in a really good place, and I think he will be in a very good place in the future for years to come. I more so look at it as, something really good for people like Austin Theory, who are getting a chance to expose themselves to a much larger audience.
Renee is backstage, not Renee Young. This is Renee Michelle sitting backstage with Drake. Drake is out of breath, but he survived the night as champion. But then in the crate they are sitting on, R-Truth gets out of it with a referee. And Truth tells Hornswoggle that's his baby. And Carmella tells him to go get the title, and they chase Drake Maverick. And I don't think we ever got a resolution to this, did we?
Not on the show. I mean, maybe on social media they'll continue this, or SmackDown, I suppose.
Yeah, this is how the segments ended that night. Shane and Drew are with Gary the Janitor. He's offered $5,000 to team with Roman Reigns, and all he has to do is stand there, and he doesn't have to do anything. And he really needs the money, so he agrees. And then Drew, okay, remember this. Drew suggests that he wears a mask. And Shane explains he doesn't want the janitor to have the burden of being recognized worldwide like we are. So the heels came up with the idea to put him under a mask.
And Roman somehow predicted that this would happen, because
yes,
he's
black, and my friend here is black.
Oh, maybe Roman just thought they wouldn't be able to tell the difference between two black men. You really have to be really stupid in order to accept any of this, or just really be able to suspend your disbelief to a level that is really stupid in order for you to really believe this. I thought it was really poorly done.
Beat the clock. Bayley versus Sarah Logan. This elicited some CM Punk chants, and then Bayley delivered the sunset bomb and pinned her in 432. This was the sunset bomb that sent Logan the back of her head into the turnbuckle, which I guess is a Bayley go-to. She didn't have Alexa to do this too, so Sarah Logan took the bump.
I suppose if they're going to do that move, I'm glad at least here it was used as a finish. I think it should at least, be conditioned for the audience to give it a big reaction. But, a pretty quiet crowd for this match too. At times they were chanting CM Punk. I would say decent level of aggression from both ladies in this match, but the crowd did not give a shit about this.
I was totally with this crowd by this point in the show. Then Nikki Cross took on Dana Brooke. Nikki stomped her in the corner. Dana stopped her with a gourd buster and then missed a swanton. And she got very high on this swanton.
She's been doing it on
main event
shows.
Yeah.
Main event, yeah.
Yeah, her and Sarah Logan have been doing matches on main event. She caught Nikki with a cradle for a 2 count, and then Nikki hit her with the spinning neck breaker in 241, and she destroyed Bayley's time. So
yeah, what the hell was up with the times?
You know what? I was not complaining. I didn't need them to go 4.5 minutes.
Well, I understand, but wouldn't you at least want to have it close to make Bayley look like at least competent?
No.
She beat her by a whole minute and a half.
Yeah, she's not as good a wrestler as Nikki Cross, except on SmackDown.
Anyway, I thought Dana looked good here. To me, this was the main draw for me was seeing the updated Dana Brooke. She pulled out some new moves. I think she's shown a bit of an improved smoothness in the ring. So I actually want to see a bit more of her.
I think Dana works very hard, and I think she really wants to be very good at this. And to me, she is right near the top of my list of people that should have stayed in NXT way longer than they did. She was called up so quick. She was called a year after she started and was up on Raw, and it was way too early. She's been on this main roster for 3 years, and I think she could have gained so much by just not having the pressure of being on the main roster and being slotted at a certain level. Ever since they broke her away from Charlotte, she's kind of been in this, this non-pushed role, and I think that she was someone that could have greatly benefited from a minimum extra year in NXT. I still feel she would probably progress more by getting regular NXT house show touring and working in that system.
Yeah, and it's clear, at least from seeing this match, that she has been taking advantage of, the being out of the spotlight to improve herself and work hard. And earlier this year they were giving her a bit of a push. But ever since Money in the Bank, we just have not heard anything. It's the whole women's division for that matter. I feel has been just full of people that we just haven't heard from in a long, long time. I'm thinking about people like Naomi who just have nothing going on right now either. Lately, it just feels like everything is Becky, Lacey Evans, a bit of Bayley, and Nikki Cross. That's about it.
Nikki says Bayley doesn't understand what a real friendship means, and she is going to make the title match a 2-on-1 handicap match where, she explained it will be her and Alexa against Bayley, with Alexa being able to win the title. And she tells Bayley to go find a friend of her own that can slap some sense into her. And then Bayley slaps Nikki and hits a Bayley to belly and a top rope elbow. And I don't have any knowledge of this, but boy, was this teasing Sasha Banks returning.
Yeah, I mean, when you say Bayley and friend, who you can trust, I suppose, there's nobody but that comes to mind but Sasha. But what I found interesting was that in this segment, right in between their two faces on the hard camera, between Nikki and Bayley, was a giant sign with the words, "We want Sasha," from a child holding this in the background. And for whatever reason, they decided to quickly cut away from it and never went back to that shot for the rest of the segment. So I don't know if it was just a direction to, for them not to want you to think that, Or maybe they didn't want to telegraph it, or maybe it's not Sasha. I don't know. But I found it interesting that they decided to cut away from something that could have been, perfect for foreshadowing.
Mike is with Maria backstage. He's got the ice cream and pickles. And she says, I can't eat that. I'll get fat. And she asks Mike, if I wasn't pregnant right now, would you impregnate me? And he says, of course. Of course I'd impregnate you. I'd impregnate you right now. And Maria says,
I'm so thankful you do the recaps, John.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be my soundbite that is taken out of context. And Maria says, I'm not even sure you're the one that impregnated me this time. And then yells at him, look what you did to me. So these to me were two conflicting comments. She's not sure that he impregnated her this time, but then responded, look what you did to me.
After last week, I said I would wait to see where this goes. And I think I've waited long enough.
Oh, they're going to draw this out. I guarantee this is going to build up to some big fucking Maury Povich reveal of who the father is. I think they're going to milk this all summer. This is going to be like Jason Jordan as the son of Kurt Angle.
Yeah, this was really bad. I think Is He the Father angle in 2019 is just the last thing I'd want in professional wrestling, watching as a 35-year-old man. I think it'd be the last thing I'd want as a 15-year-old man. It's total trash. It's just clearly written by a man. I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong. Like, if Dana Warrior is all over this, oh yeah, she should say this, she should say this, I would be shocked. But fuck, nothing about this segment seems modern, seems current at all. It just feels like it's like something out of Jerry Springer.
There are several women on the staff, but I don't know who's necessarily. I mean, last week, the Mike and Maria stuff, it was very much, directed at like a Heyman influence. I mean, he's always been someone very high on Maria Kanellis, so that was kind of the thinking last week. And I don't know if this is...
yeah, what a role for her.
So, anyway, I think this is going to just continue, and this is going to be the big mystery. Corey Graves was backstage with Rollins and Lynch, and Graves says, some say that their personal relationship could be their downfall on Sunday. Becky cuts a promo about Baron and Evans getting no more chances after Sunday, called Graves an emo head, and Seth ended it by saying, yeah, what she said. I thought Becky cut a good promo here on Corey. But I'm so ready for this feud to be over and these two to just not be linked on TV anymore.
Yeah, I thought this was better than what we had last week, because thankfully it was only Becky speaking in the segment and not Seth having to come up with some I don't know, corny
do an Irish accent or something.
I don't know. But clearly, Becky should be the only one speaking in these types of segments.
The Street Profits are excited about Kofi Kingston and Samoa Joe. Dawkins tells Ford to stop impersonating The Rock. And Dawkins is picking Samoa Joe because he doesn't want to get choked out. And then he joked about picking Baron Corbin to win the title, but then laughs and says even Baron Corbin's mother doesn't like Baron Corbin.
Yeah.
Huge game changers here on Raw.
I mean, they're really just two big WWE fans, and I think they have a great deal of personality. I thought last week, Montez Ford especially came out with so much energy and so much charisma that it was really great. I feel they're quickly bordering on obnoxiousness, though. If these were to continue 2 times every single week.
Yeah, it'll depend. I really enjoy these two, but yeah, I don't want to these guys are just.
I couldn't watch wrestling with two guys like this, guys doing The Rock impressions and I don't know. Maybe that's just
this is like watching with Braden. This is
no, it's not. Like. No, it's not.
No, Braden's fun to listen to. They aired a trailer for Batista's 24, and then we had our main event, and there was 8 minutes left in the show. I was not complaining. Mike Rome did the single absolute worst introduction ever. This thing was awful. Shane's face said it all, as Mike Rome's voice looked like it was about to just check out. It was really rough. Drew cut a promo on Roman Reigns not having respect for anyone except for himself. He's going to beat respect into Roman Reigns. And then they introduce Roman's partner, the 5th grade spelling bee champion, the Prudential Employee of the Month, Gary Garbett, who limped out wearing the Dos Caras mask. And we got our tag match.
With 4 minutes left after a commercial break.
Couldn't go quick enough. Drew stopped a Superman punch and then hit Roman with a Glasgow kiss that knocked him into the corner and inadvertently tagged in Gary Garbett. And in comes Gary, and Shane tags himself in, and they're bringing up how Shane was a liar. He said that Gary wouldn't have to do anything, and now Shane's going to beat the piss out of him. But instead, this guy fires up on Shane with an enziguri. He slips on he goes for a springboard and slipped. And I was like, wow, this guy is like purposely trying to fuck stuff up to get this over. And in hindsight, it was just a legit slip that he did, and luckily didn't like break his face falling down. He hit a handspring, tope con hero, and then a springboard cross body, and then turns around and gets laid out with a claymore, and Shane pins him in 209.
Everything made sense about this until the finish.
None of this made sense. I think you're being too
You're right.
Like even the like the heels masking him. None of it made sense. But I know what you're trying to say here.
But the finish was like, what the fuck was the point of this whole thing? The heels basically got exactly what they wanted out of this anyway. So for Roman,
who gives a shit that it was Cedric? It's like, wow, I thought we beat a handicapped janitor. Instead, we beat a former champion. Awesome. We're like really good at this wrestling stuff, and you two suck.
It made Roman look stupid for trying
Roman looked so fucking dumb here.
Yeah, for trying to like.
And this is how the goddamn show ended, dude.
Well, this is the go home
with Roman like shaking his head like, man, what an idiot.
This was the go home show, man. To Extreme Rules. So, I mean, Roman looks stupid for like coming and trying to think of this like massive grand plan to have Shane and Drew's plan backfire, only to have the plan backfire on him anyway. He got his friend beat up in the process. Shane and Drew, I guess, I don't know. Like this worked perfect, I suppose. Maybe they didn't beat up Roman as much as they wanted to, but they beat up this cruiserweight anyway. But Cedric comes out of this looking really dumb too. So.
He takes the mask off. He's bleeding from his lip, so he got nailed in this whole thing. And he's like giving this grin like he pulled one over on everybody. It's like, dude, the only person you outsmarted was yourself. It was perplexing end to Raw and making Roman like, goddamn, like I always hate the Austin comparisons, but like, could you imagine him where Vince and Shane pulled one over and beat Steve Austin and his partner, I don't know, pick whoever, your undercard guy. It was just, this was a bad episode of Raw.
It was a
bad episode.
It was a perplexingly bad episode of Raw where I think a lot of just booking decisions were incredibly weird and incredibly like wrong.
Not even thought out. Like, how are we not just figuring like just basic stuff? Like, why is Elias walking out on this match and it's 3-on-2 for the baby faces? And why is Roman looking like a goddamn idiot by the end of this where the heels are outsmarting the baby faces? Like, they're 2 steps ahead of the baby faces that thought they were 1 step ahead. And maybe we
why
so much.
Why was Rey Mysterio's comeback wasted on a Bobby Lashley squash match? And why was there elimination rules to a mixed tag match? Like, I often say, a video game could book an edition of Raw that we review. I think a video game could book a better edition of Raw than what this was. Because at least in a video game, you probably wouldn't be allowed to do a mixed tag match with elimination rules attached to it. It would probably just be grayed out or something.
This is a reminder of when you and I were interviewing Impact at its worst, or a Nitro.
It might be worse than some of those. Like, this was 3 hours worth, for one thing. And I think Raw should definitely be held to a higher standard, given that they have way more money, way more resources, way more talent working back there, and they're on a bigger stage. What's incredibly strange to me is that we came off of, I thought, one of the best episodes of Raw of the year last week, all of a sudden to this. So if we have to give Paul Heyman credit for last week's show, we must give him credit for this one as well. I don't know what the fuck was going on, but this was a terrible edition of Raw. No good matches on this show either.
Yeah. And you know, from like the sound of things, it's like last week's show, like it was still like the same team in place. But I mean, you could watch that show, you could certainly see the influences, and like this show just felt like a drastic like retread back to where we were, and I would say even worse in many cases, because you were just puzzled here. I would venture to guess this would be among, if not the worst Raw of the year. I'm giving this one because I don't know when else I can give this. This gets a 1.
Because it came off of the one last week, or just in general?
I found this to be just a perplexingly badly put together Raw. And I don't know if this hit a low for me.
I'm trying to think what
I'm definitely being too harsh.
No, but I'm trying to convey
this was just a baffling show for me.
But I'm trying to think what a 1 would look like. Like, how bad would a show have to be in order for me to give it 1? Can a Raw get worse than this? Like,
Do you want to rewatch this?
What were the redeeming quality of this? Because I'm trying
seriously, what were the positives? I enjoyed. I'm going to try and be really extra positive. I'll give segments the benefit of the doubt, and I'll even bell curve them. I thought Drake stuff. I enjoyed the segments with Drake. I like Nikki Cross. I think she's a great personality. I'm scanning through my notes here. Literally. Becky cut a fine promo with Corey.
Lacey punching Becky in the mouth. I mean, maybe a little too harsh, but it worked out. I think for the feud, for the match on Sunday.
You're saying the shot you said was like a stiff punch. That was one of your high points of the show.
Ultimately, that helped the match, did it not? On Sunday, promote the match. That's the goal of this show, isn't it?
They mentioned Evolve. That was they pushed the show on Saturday.
Yeah.
Street Profits have good delivery. I just don't really care for what they're delivering, but their actual delivery is very good. That's about it, dude. Like, some of the booking on this show is just
the Nikki Cross stuff.
I mentioned Nikki Cross.
Oh, you did.
Her personality and the promos I thought were good. And yeah, I really had no issue with that and the setup for the handicap match. And it also teases something. I think you're left wanting to see Sasha Banks show up, and that's what I will give a big positive to that, because sometimes you will want to do a surprise that no one foresees ahead of time. And this one, it's, well, we want to see Sasha Banks, but we don't know that it's Sasha Banks. So if she does show up, it's going to be an enormous pop because you've allowed yourself to anticipate something you do want to see, or at least I think most people want to see.
What if she doesn't show up, though?
Well, then you're left promising, or at least teasing, something that you had no intention to deliver, because unless Bayley's got any other friends out there.
I thought Ricochet and versus AJ was built up fine, you know.
Your favorite Mike and Maria continues.
Oh man, that was awful. That was really bad. That was to me, one of the worst things on the show. I give it a 2.
All right. We got staggeringly low feedback. I do not at all take any
I'm
humility
surprised,
from that.
honestly. I'm surprised because I feel coming off of last week's show that I sense that there might be heightened interest in Raw, but
I'm not lying. Way if we were not doing the show, I would have been done after an hour tonight. Like, tonight was just one of those nights where I would have gone out for a walk or something. Maybe gone to like Dairy Queen or something.
Well, we always have people anytime we have a show like this, people always, that at least someone out there is going to think that we're way too negative on the show and think that this was actually a decent show or maybe even a good show. So I'd love to hear from some of those people.
Well, Andrew from Cape Breton has a more positive view. He says Raw was okay tonight. I think it would have been an incredible star-making performance if Cedric Alexander was able to get the win tonight on Shane McMahon. I get that he's not the person being focused on, but this whole setup seemed like a way for Cedric to get over with the reveal after a win. I'm also feeling a little bit uncomfortable with the Mike and Maria angle. I get that Mike is the sympathetic figure, but I'm guessing not all pregnant women just go into these psychotic rages because they're pregnant, so maybe it's her. Valid point. It looks like it's an abusive relationship storyline, and there seems like no way for Mike to get redemption at the end of it. Speaking of relationships, did you guys know that Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch are in a relationship? They're not as fun to watch, though as the best couple in pro wrestling, Drake Maverick and Renee Michelle are. Man, Man gets himself TV time and his wife a job. I think he's now in the running for Wrestler of the Year. He gives this show 6 out of 10.
We all have our scales. Jay from Colorado says this Raw was definitely a step back from last week. While it still feels things may be improving, it was a long 3 hours tonight. Last week, the new edginess seemed natural. This week, it was awkward and felt forced. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that maybe they're still working through things. Real change takes time. Last week, I said I wasn't going to get the WWE Network back until they gained my trust back, but I got an email from them offering 3 months for 99 cents. So just a heads up to everyone looking to cancel. If you can live without the network for a month, you'll likely get the same deal.
And MJ, who wasn't in NJ for Raw. Well, the good run of Monday Night Raw's streak ended at 1. I really think the problem is too much TV time. Russia, that was not the problem tonight. Tonight was not, the problem was not length. It was just what was filling all of it. Rushing back Lashley was premature. So tonight we got a 2 out of 3 falls match where the first fall means nothing, a mixed match elimination tag, so really the first fall means nothing, and a joke of Ricochet versus Gallows. That the firstborn portion of every match is truly skippable makes Raw a very quick watch on delay, an unintentional benefit of fans by WWE. Would it have been so hard to let Cedric get a surprise roll-up before the reveal? He was such an afterthought. Awful execution. Shane and Drew look like father and son. I guess we're getting Sasha's return soon. I think Nikki is getting the pin Sunday is a lock. Street Profits are very enjoyable. Question for the Mixed Match Challenge. Could you see them ever making couples as teams like Seth Becky, Charlotte Andrade, Zelina and Aleister Black, and Naomi and Jimmy Uso? I'd enjoy that, especially if there was some reality TV element.
Well, a lot of those couples, they aren't couples in storyline. They're simply couples in real life, and I feel like they won't necessarily put somebody like Aleister Black and Zelina together unless there is a reason for it. If anything, you'd get Zelina and Andrade because they're an actual, I think, tandem. So I don't necessarily see them bringing all that to television.
All right. Any more to say, Way?
No, I'm good. Yeah, again, pretty surprising. If you have a difference of opinion, please let us know.
All right. We went over it. It's a packed week of shows here at Post Wrestling. You can get the whole schedule up at postwrestling.com. Way and I will be back on Tuesday night after Rewind to SmackDown that I already guarantee is going to be a better show than Raw. And they've actually announced, let's take a look at what they have announced for SmackDown because they did not mention it on the show, but they have announced several things, including a non-title match between Finn Balor and Shinsuke Nakamura. They're also doing Dolph Ziggler versus Kevin Owens. Aleister Black's opponent will be revealed for Extreme Rules. And a SmackDown Tag Championship Summit. Whatever the hell that means.
All right. Yeah, well, all that sounds promising. I look forward to seeing 2 minutes of Shinsuke Nakamura versus Finn Balor before we get a commercial break, and then 2 more minutes of it. Should be great.
All right, that's it. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back on Tuesday night.